So if you got your book, going into chapter 5, which is logic. Basic rules of line diagram. Signal, decision, action, logic functions, common control circuit, control circuit, troubleshooting. We're going to do that. What we're going to try to do in here, guys, is it really concerns me where somebody has a circuit that doesn't work and they want to tear it down and rewire it. Usually we can find the problem in less than a minute if you learn how to troubleshoot the circuit. It may take you 30, 40 minutes to wire the circuit up, right? So we're not going to do that. And what we'll probably do, guys, is don't get upset. We might pull the whole class back to your panel of what we show y'all how to troubleshoot it, right? So don't get upset. It's a learning tool, right? So no more than one load should be placed in any circuit line between L1 and L2. So there's no such thing as two loads in series. We can have a basic circuit. One basic circuit, I mean one load. One load per line. One load per line. So what we're going to find out, we can have a bunch of lines in a room. So the rule is one load per line. But a run can consist of multiple lines. Now what happens is if I put two loads per line, then the voltage is going to be distributed across those loads. These guys are not going to have enough current to run, not going to generate enough power to run. It all depends on how much R the light has, on how much voltage it drops, and how much R or how much opposition the solenoid has. But what usually happens is that when you use multiple lines, you don't get enough power to run either one of them. We're going to do a lab where we're deliberately going to put loads in series, but they're going to be light bulbs. And those light bulbs are not going to come on. Even though they got current running through them, they're not going to come on. Why? Because power varies with the square of the voltage. So that means if you put two things in series, if they have exactly the same resistance and they're rated at 100 watts, they're only going to get 50 watts of power. If you put three of them and they're all rated at the same thing, they're only going to get one-ninth of the power, right? You understand? So we're deliberately going to put a series circuit in here, but we're going to give it for troubleshooting. And that's later on. Only one load per line. Loads can be light bulbs, they could be solenoids, they could be relays, they could be small motors, they could be a lot of different things, right? Normally we don't run big motors inside our line, our control circuit. We run it in a power circuit.
Yeah, you have multiple
lines.
You have multiple overloads in one line.
Yeah, because that's not a load. An overload switch is a switch, right? You understand? So I could have 1,000 switches over here if I had enough room for them, right? You understand? I could have all kind of switches over here. I could have, because that don't make it a series circuit, and that does not make it a parallel circuit. What makes a circuit a series circuit or a parallel circuit is how you connect the loads, not how you connect the control devices, right? One load per line. How many switches could I have in a line? A lot. Yeah, well, that's bad. This is bad. See, this big old thing down here says what? Incorrect. So that's a good point. But it's a control device. But it's very unusual in that all your control devices except overloads go between L1 and the load. The only thing allowed, the only control device allowed over here is overloads. Of course, you'll never have an overload for a light bulb. It always surprises me when we start doing cross-reference numbers where people will assign contacts to a light bulb. Light bulbs don't have contacts. But somebody in this class is going to do that. I wish I would make a liar out of me on that situation, but I never have been so. So this is the way we do multiple loads. We put them in a different line. So this is a line, right? You understand? So this guy here, if I was numbering this line, I would call this line number 1. Oops. I would call this line number 1, and then this right here, if I follow this over, this would be line 2. So every horizontal line gets a number, unless it's lined up with another line. So if I was to come over here and put another button right here, then this still would be called L2, because these two lines do what? They line up. That makes sense? So we can have parallel circuits. So how many loads can I put in a rung? Multiple, but they have to be in what? Different lines. They have to be in parallel. How many loads can I put in a line? 1. This is where it gets kind of confusing in PLC. The guy that teaches PLCs, the book's got a lot of problems, so we'll have to make a lot of corrections on that. Because he says 1 load per line, and he says 1 load per rung, which is wrong. And then then later on he says, well, you have to put them in different lines. So control relay solenoid pilot lights are loads that are connected directly to L2. So all your loads except for magnetic motor starters are connected directly to L2. So there should be nothing over here unless it's a lot. Unless it's a magnetic motor starter, right? So 1 load per line. So how many lines would be in this rung? 3. This would be line what? This would be line 1. This would be line 2. This right here would be line 3. So line numbers go on the left-hand side of L1. Everybody okay with that? 1 load per line, right? Multiple loads per rung, but the loads have to be connected in parallel. Magnetic motor starters, coils that are connected indirectly to L2. So right off the bat, you can tell that this relay is a magnetic motor starter. Why? Because it's got an overload. I don't care what it's called. Here they're calling them M1 and M2 for motor starters, but that's just the name they're giving it. These overloads. These are the contacts that belong to the sensors. The overload sensors are over in the power circuit, right? Y'all understand that? And that's those 2 C things. That's the sensor. So the only thing that's allowed between the load and L2 are overload contacts. But these have to belong to a motor starter. So if this was a symbol for a light bulb, that would be nothing over here. If this was a symbol for a solenoid, that would be nothing over here. If it was a symbol for a control relay, that would be nothing over here. If it was a symbol for a contactor, it would be nothing over here. So the only thing that's going to be over here is these relays that have overload.
So if you only put overload, then you have a motor.
A motor starter. Not only a motor, it's got to be a motor that doesn't have an internal overload. So a motor that don't have an internal overload, then we have to put the overloads outside, right? You understand that? And that's where these guys will come into play. And most of these are going to be multi-voltage motors. And why? Because when you wire the motor for high voltage, your overloads might be looking for 50 amps, but now you drop that down to 1/2, right? You understand? Your overload won't trip, so you have to reprogram it. So multi-voltage motors are going to have external overloads. They've got to. Because the overloads will be different depending on what voltage the motor was wired to run at. Right? Now, if you got a multi-voltage motor, you have to wire it. You have to wire it for different voltages. And that's what all these terminals, if you look at our motors, all these terminals have it out there. The other motors, the black motors, these are dual voltage motors, but to rewire those, we would have to pull off the side cover just like you would and rewire it inside the motor, which is what you have. We might do that sometime during the semester just to see how you would have to do it in the field. So these motors are not going to have these banana plugs coming out where you do what? You jump it for high voltage or you jump it for low voltage. They're going to have a little plate coming out. It's going to be an access plate on the side. You pop off the covers and it's got screws in there. You got to move wires around. So we might pop one of those black, the access plate on the side. You'll see on the black motor, it's got that access plate on the side. That's where we would wire that for a different voltage. Right now it's wired for 240 or 208. Control devices are going to be connected between what? L1 and the load. Here they're only showing one control device. Your control devices can be hooked in parallel, they can hook it in series, they can be hooked in series parallel. That does not determine if the circuit is a parallel circuit or a series circuit. What determines it's parallel or series is how you connect these loads. You can have all type of control devices to control what's going on, right? You understand? We're not going to have that many, but we could have several. So there's a symbol for, this is the limit switch, normally open limit switch. This is the pressure switch, and that's a momentary contact switch. Multiple control devices may be connected in series or in parallel or series parallel. I don't know why they said that. But your control devices will be connected in it. A flow switch, thermal switch, foot switch, and pressure switch. Magnetic motor starter. How do I know it's a magnetic motor starter even though it's written? Got that overload. So control devices go between L1 and the load. Then the load goes between the control devices and L2. Unless it's a motor starter, and then we'll have a magnetic motor starter, and then we'll have an overload separate. Each line in a diagram should be numbered, starting with the top line and reading down. Line, we call these line reference numbers. So here they're actually showing all your lines going back to L2, but the lines do not have to go back, going back to L1. Your lines do not have to go back to L1, right? You understand? We're looking for anything that goes horizontal. That would be considered a line. Everybody okay? Good. Huh? It's a switch down here you press it. Sort of. Yeah. And they do that. They use those a lot. You're up here using your two hands and you got to cause something to happen. A lot of sewing machines use foot switches. Where these people be in there and they're having to hold holding it under there and they press that switch down there. Welders use foot switches because they're doing what? Yeah. So there's a lot of things out there that use this. But this is just a switch. It's like a limit switch. But you got a switch, you got a foot, it's got a spring in it, so when you let it up, it pops up, and you push it down and it engages the switch. Any more? But it has a symbol.
I got one more.
A pressure switch. So I've got a compressor at my house, and it's not a continuous duty compressor. So what happens is I'll come up here and I'll plug that thing up and I'll watch the pressure gauge and it'll get up to about 150 psi and then it stops. What turned that motor off? A pressure switch. Okay, then it's got a low end pressure switch where if it drops down, it gets below a certain pressure, a pressure switch brings that in. So we can deal with pressure. We use pressure. I could measure the pressure of liquid that's generating on the bottom of the tank, and I can use that to calculate. If I know the size of the tank, I can use that to calculate level. So we use pressure switches for level. level. We use it, no, most of the time we use pressure switches to measure the pressure of fluids. Could be a radiator. But a fluid, by the way, a lot of people, and believe me, when I first got into this, I thought a fluid was a liquid, but that's not true. If you ever looked up the definition of fluid, it's anything that does not have, it flows freely when it has a difference in pressure, and it takes the shape, it has no fixed shape, it takes the shape of wherever it's at. So all your gases and all your liquids would be considered fluid. So when you hear fluid power, I say, well, why are they only teaching hydraulics? But then I said, oh, fluid could be gases or it could be liquids. So normally we use pressure switches to sense the pressure of fluid, right? Different things, you know. I got a boiler out there, and it's building up tons of pressure, and if it gets up too high, then anything's gonna do what? It's gonna blow up on it. So we use pressure switches either for safety or cut off.
Would be like considered scales to do that?
Well, that's a force sensor. A pressure switch usually trips at a certain pressure. So it usually opens or closes when you get to a certain pressure. A scale is an analog device. So that would be, I step on it, and if I'm over 200 pounds, it turns on a light. If I'm under 200 pounds, it turns on, it turns off, the light turns off. Which basically, if it comes on, I don't know what I weigh. I just know I'm over what? 200 pounds. A scale would say, you weigh 200 pounds, Rich, you know, you need to. Are we okay? Are we okay? So a pressure switch is a digital switch. So it's either designed to measure, to tell you when you've got a pressure goes below a set value or if it goes above a set value.
I see how that works. So when you press the switch, the pressure switch flows.
Well, it's got two ways. This solenoid can be energized by either me doing what? Pressing this button. Now, normally, guys, when I draw these push buttons, I don't like the way this book does. See how close they got that thing? Yeah, what I like to do is I like to draw it up here. And this book does that all the time. So we got two ways we could bring in that solenoid. I could either, if the pressure gets too high, it could come up there and bring in, energize the solenoid. And what could the solenoid do? Well, it could dump pressure, right? You understand, because we got a problem. Or I can come up here and push this button. Manually dump it. This over here, on this circuit, this is a different rung. I come over here and press that button. This is a normally open temperature switch. What you mean? Yeah, this guy right here has nothing to do with this circuit down here. There's nothing in this rung that has anything to do with that rung. In fact, there's no way in the world it could do it anyway. Not unless we had a 2-pole switch. Are we okay? So this would be an example of a line diagram. We're going to ignore this right here. You're not going to see this. So this is the way it works. So what we do, we start over here on the left-hand side and we number our lines. Every horizontal line gets a number. So it does, to get a number, it does not have to go back to L1, right? You understand that? If you got a horizontal line, it gets a number. Not vertical lines, horizontal lines. So we start up there, we go 1, 2, they skip, let's knock out 4. No, we got to keep it the same. So let's pretend we got something right here. Because I'm not going to explain that concept. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We call those lines. All these are just basic series circuits. We don't have any parallel circuits in there, right? Now what we do to make this thing easy to read is we come up here and we identify where the contacts are that are controlled by a relay. So the only thing that has numbers over on the right-hand side of L2 are relays. Light bulbs do not have numbers. So you notice there's no numbers here. There would be no numbers there because these are light bulbs. Light bulbs do not have contacts. The only thing that has contacts is relays. Somebody in this class is going to put numbers on the right hand side of the light bulb. Somebody in this class is going to do that. I hope y'all make me wrong, but I haven't ever taught this class where somebody would do that. So they'll say a light bulb has a contact in line 2. Now what the cross-reference numbers do, so here on the right we call these numerical cross-reference numbers. This shows us the location of the contacts that are being controlled by a relay. So right now, CR3, I know it's got a contact in line 7. I know it's got another contact in line 9. I know it's got another contact in line 11. How do I know? It's the contacts are going to have the same name as the relay, whatever it is. Right? You understand? Here they're calling it CR. But somebody could label it Mabel. It's depending on where you go. Like I said, the more relays you have, the more complex they're going to come out with their line numbers. Usually they abbreviate it depending on what they do. And that's what US Steel does. Like number 5 bridle dynamic braking resistance. They go 5B DR3 or something like that. So that would be the name of it. So I come over here and I say, okay, this guy's got a contact in line 7. I come over here and I look and I start tracing it over. And there it is. How do I know this belongs to that relay? Because it's got the what? It's got the same name. Then I come over here and I say, okay, this says it has a contact in line 9. And this is not being recorded. Contact in line 9. Huh? No, it's not recording my fingers. Sorry. So what we do, by the way, on the recording, this is going to be a nice yellow circle. It says I have a contact in line 9. So I come over here on my line numbers and I find 9. I start tracing it over and it says there it is. How do I know it does it? Because it's got the what? Same name. It says it's got a contact in line 11. I come over to line 11. I find there's CR3. Now why don't this have any numbers out here? It's a relay. Well, it's a motor starter. It don't need it's just saying there's no contacts that are on that relay that are inside the control circuit. Those contacts are going to be in the power circuit, right? Does that make sense? So the only contacts we're going to see in the control diagram are the contacts that are being used to control. Now that CR, I know if it's a control relay, that sucker has no contacts in the power circuit. So a control relay, all the contacts of a control relay are always stay inside the control circuit. So these are going to be little old small things. They're not going to handle a bunch of current. They're going to be little old tiny relays, right? So that little old peanut relay, we call it a peanut relay for some reason. Now that's a control relay. See how small it is? That little plastic pack over there. Got it's a 3-pole double pole three-pole double throw relay. So up there, that first control relay says I've got a contact in line 2. Says I got a contact in line 3. I got a contact in line 4. Why don't we have any numbers out here on the right-hand side of PL1? It's a light. A light will never have numbers over here, right? You might want to put them over there for some reason. I hadn't figured out why people put them over there. I mean, they'll have somebody here is going to have numbers all over the place over here, all over. On relays. And some relays don't have it, like this. Why aren't they any out here? Because there's no contacts for this relay that is in the control diagram. They're all over in the power diagram. If it had an auxiliary contact, then of course it would probably be over here, right? Everybody okay? Now this one's a little better. I don't know what figure this is in the textbook. But what we've done here is we've added a normally closed contact down here. So look here. So this says 12, but can you notice something about this? It's got an underline. So if it's got an underline, it means I'm looking for a normally closed contact. If it doesn't have an underline, it means I'm looking for a normally open contact. That makes sense. So I come up here, it says, okay, now we've added another relay. This says, okay, I'm looking for a normally closed contact in line 12. Come over here, the name of the relay is M2, and there's M2. CR2 says, where's CR2? It says it has a 1 in line 12. But this is not underlined, so it means I'm looking for a CR2 contact that is not it's going to be a normally open. Y'all understand that? So these numerical cross-reference numbers shows us the location of contacts within the control circuit. Not in the power circuit, within the control circuit, right? Understand? If I see an underline, it means I'm looking for a normally closed contact. If I don't see an underline, it means I'm looking for a normally open contact. Y'all understand? Each wire in a control circuit is assigned a reference point on a line diagram to keep track of the different wires that connect components in the circuit. This is kind of misleading. What we call these things manufacturer numbers. So when you go out and you buy these devices, all these things are going to be numbers. Oops. Dang it, it looks like my camera closed out. It takes a little while. Oh, hey, hang on. So y'all see the 84, 72, 62. Let me turn it around. 53, 61, 71, 83, 54, 62, 72, 84. So if I was going to wire this up, what I would do on my diagram is I know that there's a contact between what? 53 and 54. Now this tells me what it is. NO means it's a what? Normally open. I have a contact between what? 61 and 62, 71 and 72, 83 and 84. Now what they've done on ours is they're using the manufacturer numbers, but they just bring those numbers down here to these terminals, right? You understand? So we can hook a banana plug in. So these are the exact numbers that I would find where? Up here or over here. We call these manufacturer numbers. They can be duplicated, which means you might have a 3 on this device and you might have a 3 on that device, right? You understand? Because they're going to assign them numbers. So here's these are the motor size, T1, T2, T3. Can't see those. Yeah, they're down here. These are auxiliary contacts on the top. These are hard to see. I don't know if I can get them in there so you can see them. Nope. We have to pass it around. No, I'm supposed to be up here. Oops. No, it's going to be hard for y'all to see them. But they're in here. There's a T1, T2, T3 up in here. And on this side, there's an L1, L2, L3 on this side. Y'all can see that, right? L1, L2, L3. And then these are auxiliary contacts up here at the top. So these are called manufacturer numbers. So normally what we do when we do a diagram is we come up here and one of the first things that we're going to do, guys, is we're going to assign manufacturer numbers. Okay. They have wire numbers. When you get out in the industry, what you're going to find out, instead of using all these different color wires, normally they use one color wire through the whole system. And that way they can buy these devices and stuff. And what they'll do is they'll put numbers at the terminal point, right? But what we do is when we buy these devices are going to have numbers on them. Now ours is pretty easy because we've got a diagram of the device on the right hand side. It shows us the numbers that belongs to the contacts and what belongs to the coils. You understand that? So what I do when I start wiring this thing up is I say, well, I need a normally open contact on CR or normally closed contact on CR. I'll look at my diagram and say, okay, where's the normally closed contact? Well, it's in between numbers 1 and 3. Sorry, 1 and 6. And then I'll write this on my diagram. And then when I wire it up, I'm not trying to figure out where the normally closed contact is anymore. I'm just saying, well, that wire goes to number 1 on CR, goes to number 1 on CR1, right? Or CR. Does that make sense? So what we do is we come up here and we do these manufacturer numbers. What are these wires? Oh, these are wire numbers. So I'm on the wrong one. You don't see what I'm, so let's go back. So what we do when we wire numbers is we assign each wire, each common spot, a number. So notice L1, we've assigned it what number? 1. L3, we've assigned it what? Number 3. What we do is we come up here and so manufacture the numbers is coming. So what we do is we come over here and we start on rung 1 and then we come across. Every time you go through something, it gets a different number. So here's number 1. We go through a switch, so this would be what? Number 2. We go through a relay, this would be number what? 3. Okay, now as soon as, and every wire that has a common connection uses the same number. So as soon as I hit this number 3, what would I do? 3 all the way down. So I've gone 1, 2, 3. I come down here, this is 1. I go through something. What's the next number available? 4. I go through this one, we've already labeled this what? 3. Okay. This is wire, then I come down here, this is wire number 1. I go through something, what's the next number? Okay, why didn't I put a number on this one? Right here. What would be this number right here? What would be this number right here? It's a common spot. Any number connected to a common spot, any wire connected to the common spot gets the same number. This other side would be 5. Why? It's connected to that common spot. Why did all these get 3s? Because they're all connected to a common spot. Because electrically, this one is that one. So if I wanted to find L1, I need to measure L1. What would you have to do? All you got to do is find a wire that's got what on it? 1. Where? Anywhere. And you wanted to measure between L1 and L2. All you would have to do was find a wire that had a watt on it. A 3 and a watt. A 1. You measure across that, you'd be across what? L1 and L2. That makes sense? But yeah, I'm sorry I was so confused. I was thinking these were manufacturer numbers, but these are line numbers. And I should have noticed that as soon as I saw what? All these labels 1 and all these labels 3.
So this is basically coming from the diagram.
Well, what happens is, what we'll do is we'll come up here and we've got all these terminal boards over, and we're trying to wire all this thing up. Well, what we do is if every wire is assigned to a number, then I've got a wire here. It's got a piece of tape on it. It's got a wire number on it. In airplanes, they actually silk screened the wire numbers on the wire, and they did it every 6 inches. And they were black, and all the wires inside the plane that I worked on was white. On the airplane I worked for in the Navy. But they put wire numbers all down the line. So we was coming up and looking for a wire, we would just look for what? We'd look for that number, right? You understand? In the industry, they usually don't put wire numbers all over the wires. They put it at the terminals, where they terminate, where you have the connection point. And then that's where they'd put a little, we have tape we can put around there. Sometimes they'll use a heat shrink on there, and they'll put the number on heat shrink and put it across there. But the industry is going to be more of these wire numbers that's wrapped around there. You can buy those things in spools, and they're about this long, and they have all different types of numbers on them. Usually they go 1 through 9. So if you wanted to do 19, you would wrap a 1 around there, and then do what? Wrap a 9 around there. But this is the way the wire numbers go. So we start off with run 1. We call that 1, and then we would automatically come all the way down the line, all the way down the L1 side, and everything that connects to L1 side, we would give it that number. Right? Understand? Then we move across on run 1. We go, every time we go through something, it gets a what? A new number. So 1, 2, 3. Now what they're showing you here is that I would bring this wire out. So here's that push button over here. And we'd come over here, right here where we have this terminal, we would have a what on it? We would have a 2, we would have a 1. And then we would run this thing through conduit or some type of conduit, and then we would come out over here, and then we would say what? 1 and 2. And then what would we do? Well, that would be that switch, right? You understand? So I would take 1 and connect it to L1. And then I'd take 2 and connect it to that relay. And the switch is physically over here, right? Well, how did I know how to connect that? Well, I put those wire numbers on there, right? You understand? So you're going to run into a lot of wire numbers. The biggest problem we have on our students is trying to give these common spots different numbers. I'll see people do that. They'll come down here and they'll do in wire numbers. They'll start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Even though this is the same spot. So electrically, this right here is the same. These all right here are electrically the same, right? You understand that? I connected it right here to this relay. So I would run this wire from over here, right? So this wire 2 is supposed to connect to the what? To the relay. So what I'm doing is I'm actually physically wiring this. So I knocked this button out. All this is gone right here, right? You understand? All this is gone. Okay. So I know this wire, I know wire 1 is supposed to connect to what? L1. And I know wire 2 is supposed to be connected to the what? To the relay. And that's the way we would physically wire it. But if I just had 2 pieces of wire coming out of a piece of conduit that had no wire numbers on it, right? You understand? So you usually put these wire numbers on there when you pull these wires, unless it's color coded. Sometimes these cables will be color coded. And then you would document, well, the green wire is 2 and the brown wire is 1, right? That makes sense? In fact, that's the way they do in automobiles. Have you ever looked at a wiring diagram on an automobile? Have you ever looked at the wiring harnesses on an automobile? All the wires have different colors. It might be green, and they might be green striped, they might be dashed, and all kinds of stuff. They might be orange and green. So automobiles, that's what they use to identify the wires. They don't use numbers, they use what? Colors. And every time they go through something, they change colors. So you got a plug up there that plugs in over here. Over here, you look over here, it might be solid orange. On the other side of the plug, it might be orange, white. It might be orange and white stripe. So usually they go with variations of the same color. So every time it goes through something, they change the what? They change the color. They don't change the number. Yeah, go out there and see if you can get some of those plugs on it. Just get your knife and cut them off and put them up and look at them. And Rich told me to do that. We had my niece came over to the house one time, and her mother had got brand new furniture, and I said, when you go home, it's okay if you go home and jump up and down on your mother's couch. So she went home and jumped up and down on her mother's house. She said, what are you doing? He said, Uncle Rick said I could do it. She got mad at me. She still won't let me live that down. Even though her daughter is like 25 now, she lets me know about that. Okay, guys, y'all take another 10-minute break. This will be the last one. So we have a worksheet, by the way, that we'll probably give out Wednesday. So Monday's a holiday, where y'all gonna do all of this for do line numbers, do wire numbers, do line numbers, cross reference numbers. When we do our wiring, we're not gonna deal with line numbers and actual wiring. Because line numbers wire numbers are nice, but we don't really need them. What we're going to deal with is what's on the next slide. This is what we call manufacturing numbers. Manufacturing numbers, this is what I got confused with. Manufacturing numbers includes terminal numbers to be identified and separate the different component parts, including the pieces. Who gives manufacturing numbers? The manufacturer. So all these contacts, all these coils, all these different devices have numbers on them. Can they repeat? Yes. Right. So you're going to have to keep up. You just can't say, okay, this wire goes to number 1 and it goes to number 3. And you're just looking for a number 3 and hook it up there. That's wrong, right? So what we're going to do when we do layout is we're going to assign manufacturer numbers. So we're going to take our diagram before we hook up anything at all. We're going to look at our components. We're going to see what we have. We're going to identify the numbers and we're going to put them on our line diagram. Manufacturer numbers, not wire numbers, manufacturer numbers. Once you've got the manufacturer numbers assigned, then it becomes extremely easy, a lot easier. I'm not going to say extremely. A lot easier to connect that thing correctly. Because now you know the components, you know where the push button station's at, you know what a relay looks like, you know the numbers on your relay. So now you can say, go from number 2 on the push button station over to number 13 on the control relay. Right? You understand that? And this is the way it works. We work in teams. It's not a team where this guy's wiring the circuit and this guy's gone, right? You understand? It's this guy's wiring the circuit. The other guy is telling what wires to hook up. So we got one guy wiring the circuit, right? The other person is saying, okay, you need to hook that from 3 on the push button station to 5 on the control relay. So the guy that's wiring the circuit is not looking at the diagram. It's the guy, and then the next lab, what are you going to do? You're going to switch positions. 2 people to wire these things. It's going to be less things, because now you're not trying to look around, right? Go ahead.
Why is line 5 not
What do you mean?
We don't what you talking about is wire numbers.
This is manufacturing numbers. So manufacturer numbers are assigned by the what? Manufacturer. And you're going to see there are going to be all kind of weird things. These are line numbers. Who assigns line numbers? You do. Who assigns cross-reference numbers? You do. Who assigns wire numbers, which we're not going to use? You do. Who assigns manufacturer numbers? The guy that makes the part. So when I look at all these parts, I'm going to see these terminals on this thing, right? So I want to wire this thing up. Now, what I like about the ones we're using is that it's got the drawing, it's got the actual diagram on the side. When you get into sensors, you're going to look this thing up in a book, in a manual, just like you would if you bought it. That would show you what is actually between 53 and 54. And so when you look at over there, it's going to be the actual, it's going to be a normally open contact. When you look at our parts, it's got the little diagram of the way it's connected. It's got it on the right on every one of them. Can y'all see them? So if I come over here, I know it's not being recorded. This is a control relay. So it's got the symbol of the coil. It says my coil is between number 13 and 14. Which one goes to L1? Which one points straight up? It's just a relay coil, right? It don't make any difference what goes to L1 or L2, but I know there's my manufacturer number. This says I have a normally open contact between 12 and 8, and I have a normally closed contact between 12 and 4. Because it's a single pole double throw switch. So this is a 3-pole relay. So that means I got 3 sets of contacts in there, and each one of them can go in 2 directions. One of them's going to be one direction is going to be a normally closed, one direction is going to be a normally open. And then what we have these terminals. By the way, when we put these things up, all we use is one wing up. We don't have to put all 4, just one up here, right? Now, of course, what they've done is taken the diagram. So in sensors, we don't have this. Sensors, we got the book that comes with each device, and then we have to look up and actually see what's there. This guy has a little diagram on the top, and it gets very confusing unless you see them for a while. So we're learning how to do that. So what they do is we have the banana plugs down here. So 8, 6, 4, 8, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. Then over here it's got what 12, 10, 9, 14, and 13. And then I come over here. What they have is they have the little diagram over here, right? You understand? So the coil is between what? 13 and 14. Here's a single pole double throw. So I have a normally closed that I can use between 9 and what? 1. Or I have a normally open I can use between 9 and 5. 3 pole, 3 switches, double throw. Understand that? So double throw, anytime you have a double throw, one side's going to be normally closed and one side's going to be normally open, right, on these relays. And here's the actual relays, and you can actually see the contacts inside this thing. So here's the coil, and then here's the actual contacts right there. So right now, notice this guy's resting up against that one. That would be your normally closed, and this would be your normally open. And then this would go down to one of these other ones. So what's nice about this, I've got my manufacturer numbers where? Right there. So if I was going to hook up this circuit, so here's my diagram. Oops. Of course, I would have to have my, I'll get this in there, guys. There we go. So the circuit I have wired up there is, I come over here, and it's got 2 runs. Come over here, I got a stop button, normally close button. Then I have a start button. And then I have a relay coil. And then I have a ceiling. Then I have a normally closed. And then this goes over to a light. And we'll call this CR. And I'll call this CR. And I'll call this CR. Over here I'm gonna put 1, 2, 3. Those are my what? We'll call this column. There's my line numbers. Over here I'm gonna put 2. Oops, bitch, I don't know where that 2 came from. Because that surely wasn't a 2. Over here I'm gonna put 2, right? Put a comma, put 3, and I'm gonna underline 3. Because it's a what? Normally closed. Okay, then I would come over here and I would look at this one. And this is pretty neat because I could wire this real fast because this right here, no I couldn't. So I'll come over here and I'll look at my numbers, right? So what numbers I'm going to use? I'll come over here on my diagram and my relay is between what? 1 and 14. So I'll come over here, 14, 13 now. I'd come over here and I might assign this 13 and I'm going to put that 14. And this is going to be CL2 and CL1. That's going to be coming off my transform. Okay. Then I need a set of normally open contacts. So I'd come over here and I look at my diagram and I look for a set of normally open contacts. So I might use 9 and what? 5. So I'd come over here on this normally open contacts and I would say 9 and 5. Make sense? Okay, then I would come down through here and I'd find a normally closed contact. I can't use that 9 because they're not common. So I'd come over here and I'd look for a normally open set of contacts and I might use what? 10 and 6. So I'd come over here and I might say 10 and 6. And you could say 6 and 10, you know, but you're just going to have to wire it that way. Then I would have to get my pilot light and my push button station. So this is our push button station. It's got a start stop button there. Now this is what we call a label. The legend plate can say anything. They're the ones that put stop and start. So if you need a normal closed push button, you don't have to say, well, it's supposed to be on. It's not supposed to be stop. You're looking for a normally open closed push button, right? You understand? Yes or no? So don't look for the name. Look for the component that you need. So I got my light bulbs over here. I got 2. This has got a selector switch on it, but we'll talk about that later on. So I'm gonna come up here and find one of my light bulbs, or my luminaries is technically what they call them. So here's my symbol for my light bulbs. What can I use? I could either use my green one, which is between what? 3 and 4. I could use my red one, which is between 1 and 2. Don't make any difference unless it tells you the color. So I would come over here on my diagram for my light bulb, and I would put 3 and 4. Follow me so far. Then I would come up here and I would get my selector switch. This is before my push button station. This is before I even start wiring. So this is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to assign manufacturer numbers. And then I'm going to come over here and look at the diagram for that thing. So my start switch is between what? My stop is between 1 and 2, and my start is between what? 3 and 4. So I'll come up here on my diagram right here, and I would say 1, 2, 3, 4. So now when I wire this up, I'm going to take L1, and I'm going to first. This is the best way to do it. Wire L1 and wire L2, and then come back and wire the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wire coming out from my transformer. It's up here. It's going to be called XL. I'm going to run it to this switch to 1, right? Then I'm going to jump it down to what? 10. On the what? On the relay. And I'm through with L1. Then and by the way, on your transformer, you should only have one wire, 2 wires on your transformer. All your jumping should be done down through the line. We never, ever, ever want more than 2 of these plugs on any one contact. And you can do it, guys. There's a lot of people that done it for you. So we don't want 3, especially hanging from the bottom. What happens when you get 3 is it creates so much weight that suckers just fall out, right? So no more than what? 2 per connection. And that's usually not on your power source. Here over here on my transformer, my L2 on my transformer is going to be called X2. This is going to be called XF on my transformer. It's going to be my CL1. This is supposed to be a 1, even though it looks like a 2. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to start out on X2. I'm going to take a wire and I'm going to run it to 14 on my relay. Then I'm going to put a plug in, and all our plugs, they plug in the back of each other. Then I'm going to jump down to 4 on my light. I'm through with L2. Then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to take 2. I'm going to run it to 3. And then I'm going to put another jumper. I can either jump on the 2 banana plug or I can jump on the 3 banana plug. But I'm going to put a jumper down to 9. Right? You understand? I'm through with there. Then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to jump down here. I can do it 2 ways. I can run 4 to 13. And then I can take a jumper and either jump it to 4 or I can jump it to 13 on the relay, whichever one creates the shortest wire. And then I'm through. I'm wired up. Everything's wired up. But see how much easier it is if I go ahead right before I start and do what on my diagram? Put these manufacturer numbers up there. Now I'm wiring according to the numbers. Now my partner can say, okay, go from XL, go to 1 on the start stop station. Then jump from 1 on the start stop station down to 10 on your relay. You don't even have to know it's a contact, because now you're not looking for an normally open contact. You're not looking for a normally closed contact. You're looking for a number. And it's very little mistake. You got 2 people. You got one guy looking at the diagram. Y'all assign the numbers right on both your lab books, by the way. So every lab book has to look the same. Right? You understand that? So when y'all do your numbers, y'all going to do the numbers in both your lab books. If it's already got a number there, you're going to mark it out because it's wrong. So some of these diagrams, the guy depended on the certain parts, but those are not the parts we have. So if you see a manufacturer number on a diagram, you need to mark it off because it's wrong. Guaranteed. So the first thing you're going to do before you connect the circuit up is you're going to do what? Assign these manufacturer numbers. And then after that, you got 2 guys taking care of each other, right? And y'all understand both of y'all's grades are together. Both of you need to be here. The only time it's not together is when one person's absent. If one person is absent, the other person's going to do it by themselves, and you're not going to get credit for it. But what we do, guys, and you say, well, I might have to be absent. Remember, we scale the lab grades. We drop 2 labs, so that means 2. You can mess out on 2 labs, but if you're here for the rest of them, you can still do okay. But if you drop 2 labs and then you make 30 on another lab, that's not going to be good, right? You understand? But it's hard to do that. And like I said, the first 4 weeks we're going to be very lenient on what we do here. After that, I'm going to become more stricter on how I grade. It don't mean I won't help you. It's just after the 4th week, if I come and help you, I'm going to take points. Y'all understand that? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish up this chapter. When we come back, we're going to look at what? What's in here? What else is in here? How we identify parts that are not together. Now, anything that's mechanically connected, can y'all see how we know these are mechanically connected? So that means they work together. So that would be what we call a single pole, double throw switch, but they're in different lines. So they put that dash. Sometimes we can't put these things in consecutive line numbers. So I don't want to run a dash line all the way from line 1 all the way down to line 5. That's going to be very confusing. So see what they do? They draw these little what? These little arrows, right? So if you see this little house little thing right here, it says, okay, and then they give it a what?
Number.
What number is that? The line number where the other guy's at. So I come down here, this is pointing up, it says, okay, my partner's up in line what? 1. This guy says my partner's in what? Line 5. These guys are mechanically connected together. But logically, it was easier to draw this to figure it out and not put those things in consecutive lines. So y'all see that? Any problems there? And then we'll look at this. This guy, I don't really like this, but we're going to learn about logic. What logic do we have? And, or, not. We've already looked at memory, right? That's that ceiling circle. And then ORs and NAND. And we're also going to look at exclusive ORs and exclusive ORs. Alright guys, see y'all Wednesday. I wish I had this worksheet. Just look at the rest of this chapter. You got your book. If you don't have your book, look at the PowerPoint slides, right? There's my Cutler hammer relay. No wonder I couldn't find it. Guess where it was?
Right there.
It's on my desk. That's embarrassing. That's like sometime I'll be looking for my glasses. And my wife says, they're on your head.
What was it?
The Cutler hammer relay you was looking for was up here on the desk. I was going to show y'all the auxiliary relay.
This will be what
Oh yeah, that's fine. Like I said, we're working in low voltage.
Yeah.
With working in 1,000 volts, I'd say, you know, yeah, that'll be fine. And in fact, I gotta find mine. Mine's around here somewhere. I might steal a pair from the electrical value. I found my Cutler hammer relay.
Where was
It's up here on the desk.
it? I started to say.
It was sitting right there.
I hope I didn't move it.
I was telling them sometimes I'll be looking for my glasses and they'll be up on my head like that. I can't find my glasses anywhere.